Our goal is to change a person's life experience. We want to improve their quality of life.
I meet with every individual client that comes through the Sobering Center, whether they requesting treatment or not.
A lot of us have been where a lot of people that come through those doors have been.
When someone's ready to give up their substance, they need support and they need access to care almost immediately.
The Houston Recovery Center is an idea that was introduced to the city of Houston actually from a visit to San Antonio. I was in San Antonio in 2010 looking at that big homeless project, and they happened to show us some of the other services that was under their operation, and the one that was most impressive to me was what they was doing with individuals that was being arrested for public intoxication. What they was choosing to do in lieu of taking these individuals to jail was turn them over to a facility that would watch over them until they were sober enough to be free to go back out on the street. A person that got arrested for public intoxication these days in Houston are brought to the Sobering Center. We take all intoxication, whether it's drugs or alcohol, with the exception of a few that cause individuals to be extremely violent when they're under the influence. But any other drug that would cause a person to be impaired, we will take those individuals here if they're willing to cooperate with us. So individuals are brought in generally by law enforcement, and when law enforcement pulls up to the back door, a recovery support specialist will greet them as they bring the individual in. The recovery support specialists want this person to understand that they're in a safe place, that this is not jail. That takes a minute for them to understand sometimes because they just rode over here in a police car in handcuffs. One of the first things we want them to understand is that this is a safe place, that you were brought here because we're concerned about your welfare. Then we'll tell them what the process is. Now, this is the intake process, so we're going to search you, we're going to take your belongings, we'll put them in a safe place, you'll know where they are, you can have them back when you get ready to go. And once we clear you through the search and intake process, then we'll take you in to meet with our EMTs. The EMTs are the highest trained medical personnel that we have on site. Their job is to make sure that you are stable enough from a health perspective to be in our care. Because again, our highest priority here is safety. Safety for you, safety for us. Once the EMTs clear you, they'll check your vitals, they'll check your blood alcohol level. They do it through a breathalyzer, we don't draw blood. And they'll interview you to see what's on board. What have you taken in the last 3 or 4 hours? How much of that did you take? As much as information they can get out of them. They're pretty skilled. They've been doing this for a while, so they know how to get the information that they need to make a decision on whether or not this person is safe enough to be in our care. And that's basically what they're trying to do. Should we keep this person or should we call 911? They may actually go into a crisis that we can't manage. And we want to be ahead of that rather than trying to respond to it after it occurs. So when that happens, then we'll call 911. 911 will pick this person up and transport them. They'll check them out when they get here to see how severe the problem is. Most often, if we call them, when they get here, they check them out, but they transport. If they clear intake, then they go into the dorm, which is where they will rest until they are sober enough to be ready to leave. And what happens in the dorm is that they are given a cart. They can simply sleep if they want to, or they got a table they can sit at. If they're sitting up, then one of the recovery support specialists will be engaging with them to see how they're doing. What was it that got you here? That conversation is very deliberate. It sounds like a general conversation that they're having, but it's quite deliberate. They're after very specific information. And that is, they want to determine if this person has a problem that really need addressing, or is this a person who went out on a Friday night or a Saturday night or Sunday night and had too much to drink and put themselves at risk to be of harm to themselves or others and were brought over here by law enforcement.
A lot of times they're in fear when they come through those doors, and they're met by me or one of my team members that's a recovery support specialist, and they're greeted. And once they come in, we of course treat them like they're human and get to, let them know they're in a safe place. This is a safe environment for them to sober up. And once they sober up, we talk to them and see if there's any concerns they have about what brought them here, or if there's some changes that they might want to make so that they don't return here or even jail next time.
So if a person is just sobering up and they want to leave, they don't want any help, and our conclusion is that they probably don't need any help, this was probably just a one-time experience for them and this is not likely to happen again, then they're free to go. They will either call a cab to come pick them up, or they will call a friend to come pick them up, or they will choose to take public transportation, and they are free to go. They get cleared, they get their belongings back, and we show them to the exit. For those individuals that have addiction issues and are willing to start looking at that as a problem that they may want to address, then they get turned over to a clinical team. The clinical team is made up of a licensed counselor who's a case manager and also a peer specialist. And so the licensed counselor will interview this person first. Their job is to see how severe the problem is, and that information will help them match them with resources in the community that's most appropriate to address that level of need.
The clinical team primary responsibilities are we assess for treatment, we also assess for transitional housing, we also, whatever needs the clients need, we try to meet, help that client. After transition housing, they may need employment. So we assess with the employment process. We send them to different referral sources to help with employment. We set up programs for them to go attend for job training where they can later be placed on a job for employment.
The individuals that we see that suffer from addiction and mental health, we see these individuals often before they actually start looking for help, which is one of the things that's so unique about what we're doing. And so many of these individuals have not only have they not sought help, they have not had anybody intervene or try to offer them help. A lot of these individuals have basically decided that this is their plight in life. They're not sure they can change. The beauty of what we do is that we have a chance to see these people over and over and over again. And each time we see them, it gives us an opportunity to demonstrate to them that we actually care. You have to get them to believe that they can change, and then to be willing to try. And so our ability to stay engaged with them over and over and over again, as long as it takes, until they are willing to begin to take those small steps toward change and begin to realize that, oh, maybe I can. And then another step, and then, oh, I was successful there, and this is beginning to feel good. And then begin to make that shift in their attitude about, and the action that they're willing to take about changing. Of course, it's not over then. Recovery is a journey, it's not a destination. And so just because they complete a couple of processes don't mean they're out of the woods. What we have discovered is that the reason our program is 18 months long is that it takes about 18 months of sustained engagement with recovery for a person to begin to have significant shifts in whether or not they're going to continue that behavior, or they're going to slip back into what is known in our industry as a relapse.
I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and so we developed a rapport together. And sometimes they cling to people that they've shared a lot of personal things with, and so that way, you know, they always ask for suggestions. How do I get to where you're at right now? What do I need to do? And I always tell them it's not about what I did, it's about what's working for you.
We address all the barriers in their life, like transportation, medication, communication, housing, income, employment, so forth, until they are stable enough to maintain themselves in society. And sometimes that can take up to 4 years.
When we started working on this project in 2010, the arrest rate was about 20,000 a year for public intoxication. When we came into existence in 2013, we had an immediate impact. The year before it was 15,000, which means it was already trending down from 20 to 15. But the year we came into existence, it dropped from 15,000 in 2012 to 8,000 in 2013, and we were only in operation for 8 months. The following year, we improved on that number. The next year, we improved on that number. Last year, the arrest rate for individuals going to jail for public intoxication was under 1,000. This year, we're on schedule to reduce the number again this year over last year. I think the number came in around 800 last year. We believe we're going to get that down to around 700 this year based on what the numbers look like through November.
We have one client that's had 439 EMS transports. He's been cycling through the emergency department. He's been cycling through the criminal justice system. And he is now to the point where he's gone on medicated assisted treatment. We call it medicated assisted recovery. It's medication that allows them to sustain themselves without, so that they can have an improved quality of life. He's no longer going through EMS, he's no longer showing up in the hospital, he's no longer going through criminal justice, and he's not coming through the sobering center anymore.
We've reduced the population of individuals going to jail, number one. The criminal justice system won't tell you it's a cost savings, but they will admit that it's a cost offset because that bed that was being taken by that individual is now freed up to be occupied by a person that is committing a bigger crime. Two is that it takes law enforcement about 8 minutes to turn a person that they pick up for public intoxication over to us, and then they're back out on the street. It takes a little bit longer than that to book them into the jail. Also, these are individuals that oftentimes require medical attention if they don't be in a safe place where they got people that can watch over them and keep them safe. And so these individuals are not ending up going to, being transported by EMS or going to an emergency room. So that's a big savings on the county side, not necessarily the city side, but it's still our taxpayers. And so those are some of the ways that there's an immediate return on the investment that's made in us. A more long-term investment that's made in us is that a large number of the individuals come through here have addiction issues and a mental health issue combined. So it's a co-occurring issue is what is referred to as. So those individuals oftentimes require a much more extensive level of care over a much longer period of time. And this is a population that don't go seeking help. So what's unique about what we do here is that those individuals are brought in front of us. They weren't looking for help. They just got placed in front of us. And then they get intervened on, and so they get help offered to them. And so we have been very successful in getting people with long histories of addiction and living on the streets of Houston into recovery, into housing, and change the quality of their lives.
A lot of times it's just having that vision of hope in front of you, especially if you've been out there in the trenches with a person that's now working here and seeing they've made this change, knowing that you can do it too. So it's all about that uniqueness that we hold with a lot of people that come through the door that makes it a special bond. And then we go and we advocate for that person. You know, once we see and they've put down a plan of what they want to make changes in their life, and according to that, we support them through that. And we advocate to our clinical team, or it might be our director, to see what we can do to help them so that they can make those changes in their lives.
The City of Houston funds us 100% for the Sobering Center. All of the services that we've developed that support the population that we identify with addiction and addiction to mental health issues is supported by other sources. And so quite often those individuals require an extensive amount of services over a pretty broad continuum, often starting with detox to residential, then to transitional. And oftentimes those resources are in short supply. So we often get stuck with having to do the next best thing rather than the service that was most appropriate for them based on their level of need. And so the community, where it becomes really important is for us not to be stuck with having to hold a person over as we have in this facility for up to a month because the person was willing to stay and we was willing to keep them, although we're set up for short stays. The average length of stay in this facility is between 4 to 6 hours. But we've had people willing to stay here for a whole month because they was waiting for us to place them in a place that was appropriate for their need. They trusted us that much, they was willing to put themselves through that much discomfort because this place is not designed for long-term stays. This place is designed for short-term stays, but they was willing to put themselves through that much discomfort because they believed in us and they believed that we could get them in a place that would respond to their needs, which is exactly what we have done in each situation that we had like that. But there is a shortage in resources in the community, and so we need the community to support where those gaps exist. If a person is willing to get into care, then we need to be able to respond to them then. We don't often have success if we have a person who says, yes, I'm ready for care, but we can't find care in the community appropriate to their needs. Quite often what generally happens with that population is that they go back to using. And so every time you have a failure like that, it's a little bit more of a discouragement in their experience bank that says that help is not possible, or this won't work. And so the whole idea of being able to get them access to care immediately is a priority in our field.
We never close a client's account, but some of the folks have progressed a lot. If we were just to take that ideal window of 18 months, We give them a certificate of completion, but the door is always open to them. We have never graduated or closed a client's account. We keep it open in case they still need us in the future, but they basically get a certificate of completion and they celebrate that with their coach and their case manager.
The most rewarding thing about all that is being there and being able to assist them in making those life changes. And a lot of times it's like watching a flower bloom and get all the colors back on it. And that's what it is when people get their lives back together once they've been out there using drugs and alcohol for so long, and then we get to see them grow in their recovery. That's a reward.